Hi, welcome today to Scarlet and Rage podcast. I am Michael, and co-host Jay is with me. I hope you guys had a fantastic weekend. Hopefully, you are feeling excited about your football teams, whether it's your college team or your pro team. Um, you know, we'll talk about how we feel about our college team, but I can definitively say I did not have a good weekend as it concerns my pro team because the Bengals. Jay, I've never seen a game that bad. It was awful.
Yeah, you get on Facebook and stuff, and I'm not a Bengals or a Browns fan. I mean, I guess I adopt the Bengals as my second favorite team because I guess I have to choose something in Ohio in that
Right.
regards. But I see everybody on Facebook commenting, "Oh, the Browns are back," and this, that, and the other. I'm like, it's only one game. What you'll see, but
Yeah, it's one game.
yikes for the Bengals fans, man. I mean, I always want the Bengals to beat the Browns, and I keep tabs on it, but what the hell happened, man? Can you tell me?
Well, I mean, it was one of those games. I don't know. Burrow looked very bad again, just like he did at the beginning of last year.
Mhm.
We've got this pattern of him not playing in the preseason. And this is 2 years in a row now. We've gone into the season telling ourselves that Joe Burrow is a superhero and that he is so good that it doesn't matter that he didn't play any in the preseason. Everything's going to be fine and this team's going to be amazing. And for the second year in a row, it hasn't looked that way. And I am still hopeful and I am still very optimistic that they're going to get it on track. But they've got a long way to go. They've got to get it clicking much better, quick.
I will offer 2 cents here, and again, I don't watch the Bengals all the time, and I see the record and this, that, and the other. I've never been sold on Joe Burrow, and I know, like, one of the first conversations you and I have had, you were like, "Oh, what? You don't like Burrow?" I'm like, "It's not that
Mhm.
I don't like him, I just think he's overrated. I think he's okay, but he just doesn't strike he doesn't have the arm strength as like the great quarterbacks, in my opinion. I don't think he does. And yeah, he's a good scrambler, but he's not going to be mistaken for an elite runner either. So, I mean, to give him all that money and that big contract could bite the Bengals on the back end because now they're gonna not going to be able to keep T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. One of them's got to go. So,
Well, here's the case for Burrow. The Bengals were the worst team in football. They get Burrow, they get Higgins. They're playing better. Burrow tears his ACL.
mhm.
Burrow comes back the next year. He has um, Higgins as a second year guy, Chase as a first year guy, and a terrible offensive line. And he takes that team to the Super Bowl and is within minutes, within seconds of winning that Super Bowl. Then the next year, they try and get some help on the offensive line. The offensive line is better. However, by the time we get to the playoffs, three of those starting offensive linemen are down. And Burrow, again, has a not average NFL offensive line, a horrible NFL offensive line going into the playoffs. And he still wins 2 games in the playoffs. And I know the Bengals have a good defense and all of that plays into it. But I mean, that could be said for Tom Brady or Joe Montana or any quarterback that's won multiple Super Bowls. I still believe Joe Burrow is a guy that will win the Bengals' first Super Bowl. And I think it's better than a 50% chance he wins multiple in Cincinnati.
It's a very bold take, Cotton.
That's my take.
Man, hey, I'll respect it, man.
Yeah.
Completely disagree, but hey, more
Yeah.
power to you. I don't
Yeah.
believe so at all. I think the only reason the Bengals like made it to the Super Bowl that year is because number one, my team choked like they always do in big games against the Bengals, and
Mhm.
number two, that defense that the Bengals had was so opportunistic and made
Mhm.
the biggest turnovers in the most clutch situations. Now, I will give Joe some credit there. He did make some clutch throws in those playoff runs, but
Mhm.
they were winning because of their defense, man. I don't know, that defensive coordinator they had. I don't know if he's even still there. Is
Yeah,
he?
Lou Anarumo, he's still there. But
Yeah.
in the NFL, you can't win 5 playoff games with the defense. Like, you have to have something behind center. And, he doesn't have the measurables, and only time will tell, but I just think that he has those intangibles that make a great quarterback, even when there may be other quarterbacks that are more physically gifted.
Yeah, he might have the intangibles. I mean, did he throw a couple picks today though, or what?
No, it was interceptions were not his problem.
Okay.
He was just wildly, he just couldn't get anything going. Now, in fairness, Deshaun Watson could barely throw anything either. The conditions were horrible. I mean, it was raining, the wind was blowing 20, 25 miles an hour for much of the game. It was awful throwing conditions. So
What?
add that. Yeah, very bad.
I had no idea, man. I haven't even seen a highlight. I just like looked at the box score.
Yeah.
I have no freaking clue.
Yeah, I mean the beginning of the game it was overcast. It was in the 60s. It was
Yeah.
raining everywhere. It was a very bad condition to play in. So you add that, to a guy that hasn't taken any live snaps this preseason, and it just made for a really ugly game.
Hmm. Yeah, well, speaking of ugly games, yeah, the Titans, they just suck, man. And honestly, dude, I'm like at like a borderline boycott of them. They piss me off, and I was like, I'm much happier if I just don't follow them. I haven't really been even on their freaking blogs or message boards like I usually am. I just
See,
posted, huh?
I think they're an example that you can't just win in the NFL with a real good defense, because they have a real good defense and a real good run game, and they still can't win because they don't have a quarterback.
Well, their running game is good because, in my opinion, they have the running back who is probably the most talented running back of all time. Yes, I do believe Derrick Henry is pound for pound the most talented running back in the history of football, but they just have no threat of a passing game. Their receivers are not good. They have an antiquated offensive style. Tannehill sucks dick. I fucking hate Ryan Tannehill. Um, I really can't say much about it. They suck, man. Their defense is
So
good, but they suck.
I mean, maybe Will Levis, maybe he's one of those old school quarterbacks that after 2 or 3 years of seasoning on the sideline, he'll emerge at 25 or 26 and be a really good NFL player. I mean, who knows? He's got all the tools. He's got a really good arm. He's a big guy. He's a relatively good athlete. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you hope so. I mean, as a Titans fan, yeah, that would be great because our defense, again, I didn't even want to watch the game. I'm not optimistic, and I'm not, I wasn't even looking forward to it. They just happened to be on TV, and my wife's like, "Well, I thought you said you weren't going to watch the Titans." I was like, "Well, they're on TV. I'm going to watch them. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not going to go out of my way for them anymore." But
Yeah. I mean,
they do
Levis,
look like they have some athletes on defense. I mean, they're an NFL team. Everyone has athletes, but
Levis is a project, but I mean, when I was a kid, I know I'm a little older than you, but so you might remember this too, though. When I was a kid, like quarterbacks didn't ever play the first year or two that they were in the NFL. They almost always set the bench. Like even
no,
the
the
really,
NFL was a better product back then. Now it's kind of
yeah,
watered down and
yeah, even the really high rated ones typically would come in and learn for at least a year, sometimes 2 years.
mhm.
You've got Steve Young. He sat behind Joe Montana for what, like 4 or 5 years? 4 years? It was a long time.
Oh, man, I have no idea. Yeah, I
Yeah,
did know that Steve Young came after Joe Montana, but that's
yeah,
interesting. I had no idea.
yeah. He sat behind him for a long time.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, anywho, this is not a podcast on our NFL teams. We will speak on them periodically, and the demise of the Cincinnati Reds losing 2 out of 3 to the St. Louis
Oh,
Cardinals.
just let's
No,
move
man,
on.
I'm not bringing up the
No,
Reds. They
move
suck.
on.
I told you they
We
suck.
we
But we
can't.
are the Scarlet and Rage. This is an Ohio State podcast. By the way, it did get renamed to the Scarlet and Rage. It's not the Scarlet Rage anymore. It's the Scarlet and Rage.
So, am I Scarlet and your Rage, or the opposite? Or is it just maybe
I don't
depends
know,
on the
man.
day?
We just say what
Oh,
everyone else is afraid to say, man.
okay.
That's why we're the Scarlet and Rage. We don't give a fuck what people's opinions are. Again, we're not affiliated with Ohio State or anything. We're not affiliated with any of these teams. We can say what we want. But
Hey,
props to my wife, Nikki, for giving me the idea to change the name to the Scarlet and Rage. So there you go.
did you see that little thing on Twitter going around? Yeah, that was a good idea. So I agree with that. It just kind of seemed like it
What
sounded
thing?
right.
What thing on Twitter?
Did you see the thing on Twitter with
You
like
mean
the Ohio?
X?
Yeah, X.
Yeah.
The Ohio State thing where it's like it says Urban Day era and Ryan Day era, and it's two different videos. Have you seen that?
I did see that, not
Yeah.
on Twitter, but I'm sure you know where I saw it,
Where did you see it?
on a message board.
Oh, on a message board. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody you know shared it, right?
Yep, somebody I know did share that.
Yeah. Um, what did you think about it?
I thought it was interesting. I think the person who shared it, I think that all right, so the clip on Facebook, or not on on X, that
Mhm.
is going around is a
You want me
clip
to
of,
show it? I can probably show it to everybody if they
if you can do it, go ahead.
let's see. I'll see if I can get it to pull up. But yeah, go ahead. Keep talking. So,
So I'll describe the clip, and the clip is
Mhm.
basically what Ohio State started under Urban is they do the little clap thing, and they're hitting their helmets, and this, that, and the other, getting pumped up with Mickey Marotti, and then the clip of the Ryan Day era is showing, like, I believe Kyle McCord doing some kind of weird dance, like
Yeah.
some kind of freaking female looking dance or something, just soft as fuck, soft
Yeah,
as
it was
shit,
it
man.
was it was very strange. Hold on one second. I can pull it up. Here it is. I've
All right.
I've got it. By the way, did a little scouting today for my son's football team and went over to Miami of Ohio. Beautiful campus, actually. First time I'd been there, and we got to play out on the football field for about 30 minutes.
Hell
So
yeah, man, that's
yeah,
awesome. Hell
yeah.
yeah.
All right, let's see here.
Is it working?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure this out. Let me see. Uh, share screen. Here we go. All right, let's pull this thing in here, Jay.
All
Can you,
right.
can you see it?
I can.
Okay.
Hopefully everyone else can too.
All right, let's see here. Let me see if I can get the volume up on it. I think it might be muted. So here's the Urban Meyer one.
Yeah.
Okay, and here's the Ryan Day one.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's again, I think some people are trying to argue like, oh, well, that was, not the same because one was right before a game, the other was before they'd even put their pads on. That's not the point. The point is just drawing kind of the metaphorical comparison that it really and there's some positives out of this week, Jay. So I want to get into those, but it really does appear kind of that the program has gotten a little bit softer. Like we don't seem tough at the line of scrimmage. I mean, we didn't dominate Indiana at the line of scrimmage, and I mean, let's just be honest with ourselves. We didn't dominate Youngstown State at the line of scrimmage.
You are correct. And before we get into that, the only question I have is, when was that second clip taken? I know the first clip was right before an actual game. I mean, the second clip, I have no idea. I mean, it looks like it was an actual game because of
Yeah, it
the
was. It was
pillars in
like
place.
it was like very early on before the Youngstown State game.
Okay, so that was from,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, it was
I
like
wasn't sure if it was like the
yeah,
spring game or something.
yeah, it was kind of like the first time they'd
Yeah.
gone, like when they'd gone out on the field, like just in their shirts. They hadn't even put their pads on yet.
Okay. Yeah. So again, it is a little symbolic of where we are right now. And yeah, I was very pissed off after watching that game yesterday. Oh, by the way, I was able to watch the game yesterday. Just for everybody to know, I did say I was going to Raleigh. I did go to Raleigh. I was at the NC State Notre Dame game for like the first quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they got like thunderstormed out and there was like a 2 hour wait. I was like, fuck this. I'm not fucking waiting around for NC State Notre Dame game. I just left. My, family members and stuff stayed, but I wasn't sticking around for
Is
that.
that stadium any better than it used to be? It used to. I was there in 1998 or 1999, and at that time, it was not a very nice stadium. Is it? How is it
Yeah,
now?
they have actually done like a massive makeover from what I
Okay.
understand, and they put in a new video board. So the video board's really nice.
Okay.
Nicer than Ohio State's. Not as big, I
Yeah.
don't think, but nicer.
Okay.
Ohio State's definitely behind there. But yeah, no, they do as much as I mean, little NC State is well, that's bad. They do as well as they can for what they have, but
Yeah.
considering they're like the third team in their state, they're at a real disadvantage there.
Yeah.
North
I mean,
Carolina's ahead of them. Duke is ahead of them just because of their basketball
yeah.
program, I think. I think, which almost gives them more more of a ceiling than higher ceiling than NC State. So
Yeah. I mean, the Wolfpack's just only going to go so far, you know?
yeah, man,
Yeah.
they're just kinda there, and that's
Yeah.
I mean, if you wanna talk conference expansion and stuff, they don't really move the needle, they're just kinda there, and, I watch and follow them and cheer for them now, but, like, the more I, like, follow them and pay attention to them, they're just kinda there, man,
I
they're
mean,
just kinda like a
wouldn't that be like
yeah.
adding another Maryland kinda? Like, maybe not even quite as good? I don't know. I
I
mean,
would
maybe
say they're about equivalent to Maryland,
yeah,
yes.
about like
They'd be
Maryland?
like adding Maryland. Like nobody I don't know any Maryland actually, I know one Maryland fan who's probably the most passionate Maryland fan I'll ever meet.
I mean, how are
Maryland
you
basketball fan.
yeah, I mean, how can you be a what do you root for in Maryland football? I mean, what I've I spent I had several trips to Baltimore,
Mhm.
and it was everybody I talked to, it was Orioles, Ravens. And I remember even asking some people like, what about the Terrapins? And everybody was just kind of like, eh, nobody, they were like, maybe we watch them in basketball a little bit, but that was about it. That's so they just don't seem to have a passionate fan base, or at least not a very broad
They
fan.
have I will say this, their fan base is passionate for the people that you actually speak to who are NC State fans. The only thing is it's like
I was
outside
talking
of
about,
North Carolina, you don't see them.
yeah, well, I was referencing Maryland. I was
Oh,
so
Maryland. Okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. I mean, I'm
No,
sure they have a small number of devoted fans, but it's not even like all over the whole state or anything.
are you talking about Maryland or NC State?
Maryland.
Okay, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't live in Maryland.
yeah,
I have no idea. I
yeah.
can say that NC State has a passionate fan base in North Carolina. I actually think they probably have the biggest fan base in the state of North Carolina regarding all the North Carolina schools from what I can tell.
Huh.
But the problem is like they have nothing outside of North Carolina. Cross into South Carolina, going to Georgia, you don't really see anything anymore.
So Notre Dame, what 1 quarter, not a big sample size. I mean, I imagine they had to look better than Ohio State's looked, but that doesn't mean that Notre Dame's going to beat them. But so far this year, Notre Dame has looked better.
Oh yeah, and Notre Dame has looked better. Don't get it twisted. They're not as athletic as Ohio State.
No.
They are going to give Ohio State problems on the lines, especially with their offensive line. Um, but again, I only saw them for like a quarter. Sam Hartman doesn't impress me that much. I know he's put up a lot of stats, but again, he's just putting the ball where it needs to be. He's not wowing you with his arm strength. He's not very big. NC State was getting after him for a while. It was like after the storm break and stuff, Notre Dame really busted the game open with their running game, not their passing game. They
He's
did kill
he's
them on the play action after that, though.
he's a good quarterback. He's nothing in my this is just my opinion from what I've seen. I don't think he's an elite quarterback. I think he's just a pretty
No.
good quarterback. I think he can make some nice throws, but I don't think that he's like somebody that's going to like strike the fear in you when he has the type of weapons that he has. But the one thing that does concern me a little bit is Notre Dame's offensive line.
Yeah, they have some. Yeah, their offensive line is good, and
Yeah.
being in that stadium, they look like I swear, like their lines look like a foot taller than NC State's lines. Like NC State was like completely outmatched on the lines, and I literally saw that at the beginning of the game, and I'm like, man, NC State's gonna just get trucked, and they did. They did get trucked, 45-24.
So I mean, that's a decent amount of points they gave up, but Notre Dame went in on the road to a Power Five opponent that, in my opinion, is probably would beat Indiana head to head, and they scored 45 points on them. Now they did give up 24, but I think the Wolfpacks may be significantly better than Indiana. Do you think
I
so?
don't know, hard to
No,
say. I
no.
don't know. I don't know, man. That was really the only time I've seen NC State play for a little bit, and There, I will say this: NC State had a much better team last year. Last year was their year to get it done, and they only won 7 games. And in their bowl game, for the most part, NC State had everyone playing. Last year, they played Maryland, who had
Mhm.
everyone sit out, and Maryland beat them.
No,
So
that's not very impressive then. So
no, it's not. So
maybe
it's
they're pretty bad. But okay, so
yeah.
let's talk about uh just a little bit for a couple of minutes, and then we're going to discuss what is, where is this season going? Can this team win a national championship? But before we get into that, what did you see Saturday as far as against Youngstown State? What were the positives that you take away from that game?
All right, first and foremost, everyone, I want to say that thank God we didn't record this yesterday because I would have exploded. My laptop would have been smashed,
Yeah.
all of that. Like, goodness, I was very, very pissed off. Thankfully, recording it a day later. So Jay is a little mellowed out now. I'm tired from my workout I did earlier today. It's a little later. And I had a chance to rewatch the game and like look at a little nuances and everything. And one positive I take is I do like Kyle McCord as a quarterback when he has time to throw. I think he has a solid arm. It's nothing to really write home about. Don't get it twisted. He's not Drew Henson's arm, but he's got a solid arm. He seems to have decent pocket awareness. He steps up, manipulates the pocket some. Not that he was ever really under any pressure. I don't think Youngstown
Mm.
State sacked Ohio State once.
No.
But I like him. I do like our linebacker play yesterday. Our linebacker play was solid. I thought Tommy and Steele played well. Um, and then, like, I did see that Cody Simon and CJ Hicks did get in later in the game. So those are two positives there for sure. But unfortunately, there are more negatives than positives by quite a
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
So, Michael, why don't you tell me, man? Tell me what like irks you right now because there are
Well,
some serious problems with this team.
yeah. I mean, let me first say, McCord did make some nice throws. Brown showed that he's just not ready, at least not now. I know that you're probably lower on Brown than I am. I'm not ready to write him off yet, but he very well may transfer at the end of the year anyway. But you never know. I mean, Kyle McCord could get hurt in game 5 and Devin Brown may have to take the team over. So, I mean, you never know how the situation can unfold. So, if that happened, I do think Brown has some upside, but he certainly looked very shaky. But I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, Jay, that he's probably thinking, this is my one chance to like try to make a big impression. So he was probably a little jittery. He was probably a little, overzealous, and maybe, it caused him to look a little inconsistent at times. But as far as the negative, I mean, there's a lot of negatives, Jay. The biggest negative that I saw, isn't the 35 points because we were trying a lot of different things. He was putting 2 quarterbacks in and out. I know it's Youngstown State, but that can still have an impact on the offense. So for me, it's not the 35 points, even though that is a little low. But to me, it's the fact that we still did not dominate the line of scrimmage with our offensive line. We still did not dominate the line of scrimmage. We were good in pass pro, but we did not impose our will in the run game. And this is Youngstown State. So that is my biggest concern. I've got others, but that's my biggest.
Okay. 2 things. Number 1, the game was definitely clunky because of
Mhm.
the road mixture of quarterbacks and stuff. I do feel that if Kyle McCord would have played 3/4 of the game versus maybe like only a half of the game,
Yeah.
Ohio State probably puts up like 45, maybe 50 points, and then we're not, and then people aren't freaking out as much, which,
Yeah.
you know, that's the truth, and there's a positive there. Number 2, regarding Devin Brown, good God, Ohio State does not have a competent backup quarterback,
Oh
man.
man.
What the
Oh
hell?
no.
This guy was like heralded, like I think on 3 he was ranked as the number 1 player in the country, and in the composite, the 247 composite is what I always go by because it's an accumulation of all of the recruiting services, and he's a top 50 guy. And Corner Canyon, Utah, wherever he played, obviously is not the best football. I mean, it's Utah for Christ's sakes,
Mhm.
but this guy, you're watching this guy, and he's again, I don't know where this is coming from. I guess some
Mhm.
news sources are saying he's mobile and stuff. He doesn't look like he's any faster than a 4.9, maybe a 4.8, and on his best day, and he's
Mhm.
in track shoes on a fast surface. I could envision him running a 4.8, and he
Mhm.
throws like a girl. He throws like a freaking girl, man. His arm strength isn't there. He had the one pass at the beginning of the game to Marvin Harrison that was pass interference, and it was not called. And I was like, okay. But then after that, it's like, why is this guy playing at all? What are we doing here? Ryan, what the hell is this? Like, you should honestly, at this point, like, in all honesty, you don't owe the fans, or, well, I guess he does because they do spend money on again, he doesn't owe people an explanation for his decisions. If, like, it turns out Kyle McCord is much better than Brown, which he is, he needs to be getting all of the reps. He needs to be getting ready. It's not close between the two. Kyle McCord is a stiff. He is not mobile at all. But let's not play around and act like Devin Brown can actually run, because he can't. A couple times Youngstown State was like on him like white on rice, and it's like, dude, you're supposed to be able to make a move in the open field against a 1 AA linebacker, and he couldn't get away from anyone. And he can't like make simple like route throws under 10 yards. And I'm like, what the hell is this guy in the game for? And why is he on scholarship at Ohio State? It's not that he's a true freshman either. He's a sophomore. He's been in the program for a year, so he
Yeah.
has had some development, albeit not live game reps. But
Yeah.
he can't make simple throws. He looks like he should be playing football in the MAC, and that's not a joke.
This is the first time, this is the first time he's seen college action. I'm not as negative on him as you are. I do think that he could potentially still be a good football player. I also think he could be a total bust. I just am not ready to like make a decision on just the little bit that I've seen him,
Mhm.
knowing the type of kind of probably psychological stress that he's been under, thinking that this is his big chance. I don't think he needs to play a lot next week. I do think that McCord needs to play the whole 3 quarters. If they're up 49-7 after 3 quarters, fine. Let Brown pay the 4th quarter, because Day has made that mistake in the past of not giving the backup meaningful reps and game reps, and then lo and behold, it's time for the next guy to play. And his learning curve is much bigger than it should be because he's never had any reps in the game. It's like, I don't understand how Ryan Day hasn't figured that out. And hopefully he won't make that mistake with McCord and Brown, because if something happens to McCord, whatever Brown's potential is, you want him as ready as he can be.
One thing I don't like, and again, your philosophy is on point, but one thing that's going to hurt it is the new rules with college football with the running clock, even with first downs, except for under 2 minutes. It's making the games go faster. I mean, I was in Raleigh and I'm sitting there. I'm like, wait, the first quarter's already over? And then, like, I
Yeah.
think a play into the second quarter, they delayed the game. You're not getting as many reps. You're not getting as many snaps on either side of the ball. A team could feasibly like milk an entire quarter damn near just, with the football, and you're not going to see a snap. I think Chip Kelly has made some grievance about it. I saw some, I
Well,
think I heard about some comments. I didn't see them.
it's a more NFL style game. I mean, when the rule makes it a more NFL style game, and it brings
Yeah.
it brings defenses back into play, where a really good defense can hold potentially a good offense maybe to 25 points now, whereas for years that hasn't been possible. Now things would still, I think, have to go right. The defense might have to get a turnover or two or something, but it's possible. Whereas in times past, really good defenses such as Georgia are still very likely to get torched by Bryce Young in Alabama, are likely to get torched by CJ Stroud in Ohio State. And this new rule kind of puts a little bit more of a premium on defense, I think, than we've had in college football in the last 5 or 6 years. And it's also something that Ryan Day is going to have to figure out, because like he's been whining about it for like 2 press conferences now. And it's like, put a strategy together. This is what you get paid $9-10 million for, and figure out how to run your offense so that you quit complaining about the clock changes. Like, because you can complain about them all you want, but they're there and you're going to have to learn to deal with them.
I don't see USC having any problems with the clock changes.
No,
Can tell you
it's
that.
not. They're scoring points plenty well.
Oh God, man. I mean, that's another discussion, but that's the best team I've seen. I know their defense is still not great, but I don't think their offense is good enough.
Texas is a very good football team.
Texas is damn good for sure. USC is better in my opinion.
Florida State's a very good football team. I still think LSU is a good team. I certainly think LSU is a team that Ohio State would struggle with.
Yeah, well, Florida State has the most impressive win on the year. I give them that.
Yeah.
They, blowing out LSU. I know Texas went on the road and beat Alabama, but Alabama's not the same team they have been the past 5 years, dropping off in quarterback as much as they did. But that's not here nor there, man. Let's talk about the Buckeyes. So, getting back on track, one thing I really didn't like, that I'm going to say, I agree with you. The push on the lines in the running game for offense is a massive problem.
Yep.
Massive problem. Now, when they were pulling guards and stuff and actually running some counter, they had a lot of success. But when it comes to just straight power, I don't know what it is. I don't know if these guys are really getting into guys or whatever, but it's not working. And then on the opposite side, the defensive line, Youngstown State was able to grind, at times, like they were able to not gash Ohio State, but they were able to really put themselves in some advantageous third downs and stuff because they were able to do well on first and second down. And it's like these guys should not be getting more than 2 yards a pop against a good Big Ten defense. Like, what the hell is going on here, man? Like,
Yeah.
we've gotten bigger on the defensive line too. So that's, Tyleik Williams is a solid 315 pounds. I've always been banging that drum for big 300-pound guys from the Southeast. They have one there. They have backups as well, but they're still not staunching people. I don't know if it's scheme. I don't know what the hell it is.
Jay, we're 2 games in to the 2023 campaign, and Travion Henderson, the 5-star out of Texas, thus far has 17 carries for 103 yards and 2 touchdowns against Indiana and Youngstown State. It doesn't look like. I mean, there's still time for the offensive line to develop and to gel. I get that. But I guess I'm beginning to wonder what actually is the ceiling of this offensive line. Like we all hoped coming into the season that this was the 2014 offensive line. Offensive line of gritty, underrated guys that come together and end up playing, bigger than their star ratings. And maybe this group will do that. But I'm beginning to wonder that, like, even if this group does come together and start playing well, is their ceiling much better than a slightly above average offensive line? I'm kind of starting to think that might be where they are.
I would say that you're correct. I still don't understand the hiring of Justin Fry. Not sure what he's actually brought to Ohio State in regards to coaching and especially recruiting, because both seem about the same as it was under Greg Stradrawa. And I don't know if he got let go. I don't know if he went somewhere else. He retired, forced out. The Ohio State doesn't really play the firing game as much. They don't have the balls to do that like other teams do.
Well, Jay, I went back and I looked at Stud's recruiting classes, and he actually recruited pretty good for most of his Ohio State career. But there towards the end, he started missing, and he started having to take, those last couple of classes, he wasn't getting the kids that he'd got earlier. And what I read, I don't know how accurate it is that he had a pretty serious back injury, and it kind of kept him from getting out on the road. And basically he just wasn't able to recruit those last couple of years because he was in so much pain.
I just wonder who is credited for Donovan Jackson. That was a 2021 five-star offensive guard
Well, I
recruit.
mean, that was Stud, but a lot of people that don't like Stud like to say, "Well, yeah, Stud was there, but actually Ryan Day got him." So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe he did. I mean, that's fine. It doesn't matter. I mean, there was times when Urban went in to close on a kid that the team really wanted as well. But that doesn't mean that the position coach like did a shitty job just because it took the head coach to come in and close it. It just means that the head coach did what their job is. They came in, their position coach has developed the relationship. Their position coach has been there all the way, and then the head coach is able to come in and close the deal. So if Ryan Day did do that, good. That's what a head coach should do. But I don't think it really takes away from the fact that Stud is the one that landed him.
Well, I mean, he was the offensive line coach on staff, so we have no
Yeah,
way of actually knowing, but they were under he was a position coach and those recruits got there when he was there, and to as of now, the only people that Justin Fry has gotten have been players from in-state, and he did get the one kid from Indiana who's committed right now, but,
right.
let's not mistake, like, Indiana is, like, some big, like, like, yeah, again, like, I almost consider Indiana as, like, almost like a pseudo home state considering they border Ohio.
Yeah.
He's not even in, like, he's a highly rated kid, but he's a top 150 guy, but let's not be mistaken, he's like a top 50, everyone in the country wants this dude,
That
so
Jay, that's an underrated point about Ohio State recruiting. And I'm not saying Indiana is, like this talent rich state popping at the seams like Georgia. Okay. That's
mhm,
my point. But they do have some really good players over there in Indiana, especially on given classes. And especially if you're talking about like in a 5-year span, like Indiana will produce some really good players. And Ohio State has like the jump on them because Indiana has no in-state program unless you want to go to Notre Dame. And a lot of people don't, they're not connected to the religious aspect of Notre Dame and all of those other traditions. And so Ohio State is the logical big program for a really good Indiana kid to go to.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. The only time I'd say we're really in a battle is if they're closer up there in, like, in Gary, Indiana, I believe that's closer to Chicago, that's Notre Dame territory, but
Yeah.
but if it's like Indianapolis, they're most likely always gonna go to Ohio State if Ohio
Yep.
State wants them.
Yep.
Yeah, again, offensive line, defensive line, both massive problems there. Man, there's one thing that just really pissed me off about yesterday's game. And the biggest thing that I really am pissed off is why in the hell is Cam Martinez still playing? Why? Why is this guy in the game? I even said before the season, not on here. I'm like, if Cam Martinez is seeing meaningful reps for Ohio State, they're in trouble on defense. He's not
Mhm.
very big. He can't cover. I don't know anything about his tackling ability. I haven't seen it, so I can't speak on that. But he is not a Big Ten, Ohio State caliber safety. Like, he was exposed last year in coverage
Mhm.
against Michigan and Maryland, and now he's getting burnt by frickin' Youngstown State's 5'11" wide receiver on a fade route. Like, what in the hell is he in the game for? And that just makes me just question Knowles. And then the other thing is Lathan Ransom. Why is he still playing? I did address that on episode 1. Like, he needs to be sitting on the bench. Find somebody else. He is another undersized guy. On Youngstown State's first drive of the game, I believe in
Mhm.
the A gap, maybe the B gap, it's hard to tell. He had the guy wrapped up at the line of scrimmage and he gets away and freaking falls forward for another 5 yards. And it's like, okay, you're supposed to be like, when you're the safety, you're supposed to be the enforcer. I could understand if it was like Denzel Burke out there or
Mhm.
Igbenogson missing that tackle. They're
Mhm.
corners. They're not
Mhm.
as good at tacklers. Safeties, man, you are an enforcer back there. You are supposed to lay the wood. And he missed the damn tackle. And it's like, okay, he can't cover because literally, like, a play after that, he missed the tackle. They threw a freaking out route, quick 5 or 6 yard out route, and he couldn't cover that either. He basically gave up two big plays that led to their touchdown. He should be out of the game. And that's just like, man, this secondary could really suck if they're playing the wrong players.
Yeah, I mean, I know that Alabama fans are probably down in the dumps today, but one thing I noticed that I haven't seen last couple of years out of Ohio State is that Ewers dumped a little ball off to the flats, and it looked like the running back had some room. And man, the Alabama safety closed so fast. He was about 8 yards deep too, 8, 9 yards deep when the
Mhm.
ball hit his hands in the flat, and he closed so fast that they got like a 1, 2 yard gain. So I'll defer to you on the safety play because I don't pay a lot of attention to that. But certainly, I can't think of too many times in the last couple of years that we've seen like big time plays from the safeties. Like it just doesn't seem to happen a
No,
whole
and
lot.
again, Lathan Ransom has made big time plays on special teams. I have yet to see him make a big play on defense. At least nothing that I recall. I know he's blocked punts and all of that stuff. More power to him. He can play
Yeah,
special teams then. Play
yeah.
somebody else at safety, man. Let's see what Kai Stokes can do. Where is Jihad Carter? I did see Jordan Hancock. Basically, I saw they were actually playing a true nickel. I think from like the second quarter on. I mean, I don't know. Again, give Knowles credit here. I don't know if I saw. I wasn't looking close enough, but I
Mhm.
I do not believe I really saw Cam Martinez too much after the first quarter. But the only thing is, it's like, shouldn't you already know this? Like, this guy is no good. Why
I
is he
think,
out there? What does he give you in practice that you don't see like in the game? Like, I don't understand.
yeah, I do think Jihad Carter played some Saturday. So I think he is like
He
healthy and
played a
able to,
lot. No, he played a lot.
yeah.
Yeah, he
But
had that almost, targeting call, if you remember.
mhm. But I mean, evidently, I guess he's still kind of got to win a job because he doesn't seem to be quite getting that starting nod yet. And
Mhm.
hopefully, again, um, sometimes people get riled up when I'm rooting for a guy, and they're like, "Well, why are you rooting for him when the coach is starting the other guy?" Well, generally that's because I think the guy that's in there is not very good, and so I'm hoping that the backup is better because I know that if the backup isn't better, then we might not be too good at that position. So, you know, that's how I am kind of like with Jihad Carter. Like, I hope he's good enough to start because, that would be a positive for the defense if he was better. If he was a better player than what we have had out there, because we're still, although the defense is better, I still am not like, I don't feel like they're just rock solid. Like if we get up against a really good offense.
We'll find out this week. We'll
Yeah,
find
we'll
out this
find
week we play
yeah,
Western Kentucky, man,
yeah, we will find out more this week.
because they're for real. Their offense is for real. I saw they blew out South Florida in week 1.
Yeah,
They scored 55 points on Saturday against somebody I've never even heard of, but
yeah.
boy, oh boy, if Cam Martinez and Lathan Ransom are left out there on islands against them, I would not be surprised to see them score in the 30s. I
So
wouldn't.
so where do you think that this, where can you see this 2023 Ohio State football team going? Like, what is your, like, if we were doing the smart thing, we would tell people right now, anything can happen. This team can still win a national championship. They can keep growing because that keeps people pumped up. But realistically, outside of some very, very unusual circumstance, and people want to quote, this is kind of, I feel like, a sign that even the greatest optimists in Buckeye Nation are becoming a little bit desperate and don't even know it yet. Because I'm starting to hear a lot about the 2002 season. Like, oh, remember that
From
2000
where? From where?
from message boards.
Oh god.
Remember that 2002 season. We looked bad almost every game and we just kept winning and winning and winning until we beat the greatest team ever. And that season was amazing. That season was magical. But that season was 1 in 1,000. You can't, every time your team looks poorly in games that they shouldn't look poorly, you can't like start imagining that, that's where we're headed again, is the 2002 season, because the chances of that are not really very high. Um, but that being said, anything can happen. Do you think that do you give this team any chance to pull it together and win a national championship?
Very, very slight.
Okay.
Very, very slight.
Like
Um,
5% or 15%?
10%.
10?
A lot
Okay.
needs to change.
Yeah.
Personnel, play
Mhm.
calling, development, a lot.
Yeah.
And as it stands right now, again, I don't know. Maybe like it is true. Maybe Brian Day is looking at these first 3 games as like exhibitions, and he's really like trying to feel out for what he has. But I feel like you should kind of already know what you have after fall camp. But I don't see Ohio State beating Notre Dame, Penn State, or Michigan. And not that I think any of those teams are that great, because all the teams we discussed earlier are better than all of those teams. But
Mhm.
those teams are all better than Ohio State right now. Right now they are. I don't
Yeah,
see
I
Ohio State
mean,
beating
yeah,
any of them. Maybe Penn State because they're at home.
Ohio State's not a top 5 team right now.
Hell
I
no.
feel I
Not
feel
even
ve
not even close.
I feel very comfortable saying that I feel like at the end of the season that Ohio State could be a top 8 team or very, very comfortable top 10 team, but I don't think that we have a high chance to be a top 5 team. And even if we did somehow get to the playoffs with this team, I think it's highly, highly unlikely that we've got the guns between the offensive line issues, between some limitations at quarterback, between still maybe not being a lead on defense, just being pretty good. I think there's enough things there that would make it really difficult to beat one of those really good teams. And it's unfortunate because I feel like it's pretty wide open this year. Like this, I feel like there's less certainty this year than there has been in like the last 5, 6 years.
It's hard to
Georgia,
make that claim yet. It's hard to make that claim.
well,
Alabama's not as good as Georgia's been.
Alabama is almost already out of the picture. If they lose to LSU, if they lose to Georgia, if they lose anywhere else along the way,
They're
they're
out.
out of the
Yeah.
picture. Um,
Yeah. It's nice to kind of have them out, but I mean, obviously on the talent composite, Ohio State's number 3 behind Alabama and Georgia.
mhm,
Uh, Georgia seems not as good this year. Again, I've only seen clips of them at times. Um, but again, back to my original point, not that I believe that Notre Dame, uh, Michigan, and Penn State are world beaters. They are not. They are better than Ohio State right now.
mhm,
The expectations in Columbus, I don't care what anybody says, you have the expectations to win it all. And if you're not going to win it all, you better be damn near right there with the best team in the country. You should be able to play with them and
yeah,
like slug it out. Those are the expectations, man. That is the expectations that Tressel and Urban like constructed in the last and since the 21st century. It is. Those are the expectations.
mhm.
Played in like 5 national championship games, I believe, damn near.
It really aggravates me when Doug Lesmerises, and I like Doug Lesmerises, but he likes to say this line all the time that Ohio State fans need to settle down because you've won 2 national championships in the last 55 years. That's not a
Does he
that's an
say that like tongue in cheek?
no, he says that legitimately, and he's manipulating the numbers to try and make his point or to make his case because that's irrelevant. 2 in the last 55 years is irrelevant. Since the turn of the millennium in 2000, Ohio State has been consistently competing, playing for, and winning 2 national championships in the last 23 years, or the last 22 years, or actually the last 20 years. So, uh, and played in several others. So that is the standard. The standard at Ohio State today has nothing to do with the John Cooper era. It has nothing to do with the Earl Bruce era. It has to do with Jim Tressel, Urban Meyer, and what they passed to Ryan Day.
I agree. I agree. Just actually winning it a little bit more, not choking in some seasons. But again, we've had so many teams that have choked over the years. Ohio State, I don't think any program in the country has had teams that have just choked as much as Ohio State has. But again, right now the expectations for this team are not meeting are the team right now are not meeting what the expectations are in Columbus. There's still a lot of problems here. I'm just going to run down some things really quick, and I'm just going to read off some things that I jotted down in my notes. one thing that's gone unnoticed and it's not spoken about a lot is we don't really have actually, we do not have a burner receiver. The 3 receivers we mostly play, Fleming, uh, Harrison, and Abuka, they're all good receivers. They're all 2 of them are definitely gonna play in the NFL, but let's not mistake them as guys that can just take a slant pass and just house it. Yes, Marvin Harrison did get behind the coverage yesterday and score, but that was a blown coverage. He didn't, like, beat anybody in man press and just blow by them. That was not the case. There was a blown coverage by Youngstown State. The safety wasn't getting over. Maybe he had a deep half. I don't know. Maybe he had a deep third. I have no idea what the coverage was. But I will say lack of speed at receiver is a real problem. Um, we need to be playing some guys that are more explosive there to create some, get some explosive plays, man. I mean, that would help a lot. I mean, again, I referenced USC earlier. They have Zachariah Branch, who is like that top 10 player. My God, he is amazing to watch. And then,
Well,
Marvin Harrison had a drop yesterday, man. People are like, I was reading somewhere people were talking about Marvin Harrison. Oh, that was rare to see him drop that. I'm like, he's had a few drops in his career. He's a great receiver, but
yeah,
he's also is like borderline Braylon Edwards of some of these drops he has.
yeah, yeah. Marvin is he's a very good receiver. He's not, um, he's not a game changing receiver in the sense that, oh my gosh, Marvin just scored a touchdown in the blink of an eye. He's not that kind of receiver. And
No.
so it doesn't take away from the fact that he's really, really good. It's just that he isn't one of those guys that's just going to like change a game on a dime and like you get him the ball in space, the defense makes one tiny mistake and he's gone. Like he's just not that kind of receiver.
No.
And we
No,
and
he's
we
not.
and we don't have that we haven't had you know, you would think that with these really good receivers, we would try to mix in somebody who's got that top end, take the lid off of the defense kind of
Mhm.
speed. And the last couple of years, Ryan Day just, hasn't had that.
I don't think they really recruit them though.
It doesn't
That's the
seem to
thing.
be.
They are getting
No.
like I mean, again, I can't complain about receiver recruiting. They're getting the top end 5-star guys, but they're not 5-star guys because I mean, they're all fast, but
Mhm.
they're not Zachariah Branch. I will say they did try and go after him, but he grew up a USC fan.
Mm.
You're not going to be able to beat that. Yeah, get kid
Yeah.
in Vegas, grow up as USC fan. It's only a couple hour drive. You're
Yeah.
not going to beat that. Um, but outside of him, I don't really see them going after dudes who are just straight burners. They all look like they're all good receivers and good route runners, but they don't really put the fear into you. Like,
Yeah.
good God, we have to have somebody deep over this
Yeah.
guy at all times, or he's
Yeah.
going to fucking kill us. That
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like they don't have that, and that really hurts their offense there. Um, One thing I'm starting to really pick up on, again, I'd referenced Lathan Ransom and Cam Martinez earlier in coverage. They should not be playing. But speaking of coverage, I know we got the transfer Igbinosin from Ole Miss. He's been solid so far, but teams are starting to pick on him a little bit. He hasn't given up any long throws yet,
Mhm.
but we're gonna find out again against Western Kentucky what he's got there.
Yeah.
But he's been a little shaky. He has given up some passes I've noticed so far between game one. Indiana started going after him a little bit in the second half, but Youngstown State did throw to his side some. So that's something to be aware of. I'm not saying he's like a bad corner or anything, but I'm just saying like teams are watching him. They're really watching him.
Yeah. Well, I think kind of looking at the whole picture after 2 weeks, I am going to land on the side that there's still a chance we could win a national championship until there's not. And I know that that's not going out on a limb. I know that that's not making a prediction. As far as a prediction goes, I don't think there's a high probability that this team's able to really put it together and make that kind of run. But going into week 3 against Western Kentucky, we still have a chance to be the national champion.
I'm gonna keep stressing this. We're gonna find
Yeah,
out a lot about this team against Western Kentucky, man. Western
yeah,
Kentucky is explosive on offense. They do all the things on offense that Ohio State struggles against. They're gonna
yeah,
get the ball out quick. They're gonna throw. They basically run an air raid. They're gonna throw it around. They're gonna throw it deep. Again, we didn't address it, but the defensive line gets absolutely no pressure. We've talked about it before.
yeah,
Sawyer and Tui Malau, as of now, are absolute busts. They give
yeah,
us nothing. They aren't good edge rushers. They don't have the first step. At this point, you almost have to start looking at Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson, who, when they did get in the game yesterday, were better than the both of them.
yeah. But I just don't see them doing it. They're happy because I think we just have to come to terms with the fact that JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer they're just run defending defensive ends. And JT's a pretty good, from what I've seen, run defending defensive end. He can stand his guy up, he can contain, he can do those things at defensive end that are needed. But for whatever reason, he just doesn't have that ability to wreak havoc in the passing game and get a lot of sacks. He's just not a sack guy.
No, he is
Um,
not, and I
yeah,
don't know if that's technique or what. He just doesn't have that. He doesn't have that first step, man. It's so weird. He was a basketball player, but I think he played power forward, so it's not like he was a guard or anything. But yeah, he doesn't have that get off, man, to get around the edge and stuff. And neither does Jack Sawyer, man. Jack Sawyer doesn't either. So
yeah,
they need to find a guy who does. I know they've been trying to recruit them in the 2024 class. They didn't get anybody, by the way. They missed on everybody.
yeah.
Um,
Because
so
Houston is not that type of
no,
guy.
he's not. He's
Yeah,
building the mold that they are. Again, I've seen him. He's the best player on the field, but if you're thinking he's an explosive get off guy, he's going to explode off the edge and just have a free reign at the quarterback, you're mistaken. He's not that guy.
yeah. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So hey, we'll see how it goes. It can keep getting better. I'm higher on McCord now than I was after the first week. I still don't think he's amazing, but I think he could end up being a pretty good quarterback. And I think it all comes down to the offensive line. Like, how well will the offensive line come together? Can they actually be a good offensive line? By the time they play Penn State, if they can, you never know. This team could make a run. If the offensive line doesn't really develop over these next 3, 4, 5 weeks, then I don't see a whole lot of a chance. But we don't have answers to that yet. So I'm just going to hope for the best.
Pass protection has been good. Let's not
Yeah.
forget, we are a positive podcast, people. Haven't you picked up on how
Yeah.
positive we are and how much like we see how great Ohio State is? We're
Yeah.
just so positive around here, right, Michael?
Yeah. Well,
We're the most positive podcast.
I'm ending on a positive note. I'm saying they can win a national championship.
Yeah, no,
It
I
can
guess
happen.
they can. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. I
Yeah.
wouldn't put any money on it, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's going to be hard with a statue quarterback, and yeah, he can sling it. I was impressed by some of his throws yesterday, but at the same time, he doesn't give you anything of a run threat. Which, if you're going to run out of the spread, teams aren't going to really pay attention to the quarterback at all, and that you basically like lose a blocker in that sense, or you
Yeah.
add an extra defender.
Yeah, the numbers are not in your favor now. When they don't have to respect the quarterback to run, and Ryan Day teams have struggled to run when the quarterback doesn't run. Um, go back to Dwayne Haskins, even when it was still an Urban Meyer team, but a Ryan Day offense. Dwayne Haskins, love him. Rest in peace, Dwayne. But the facts are the facts. He was a really bad athlete, and he had to throw the ball for 5,000 yards that year because we sure couldn't run. You know, and part of it was because we had a quarterback that defenses knew weren't going anywhere. And it was the same way with CJ Stroud. And it's the same way again now with Kyle McCord.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. In CJ's case, he just chose not to run. He always had the ability to run. He just never did. He was a little soft.
Yep.
Um,
And
McCord
and
can't.
and and
McCord actually has tried to run, and good God, man, more power to him though. He's trying. He's trying to pick up the extra yards. He's just not really
Well,
capable of doing it.
he has the willingness, so I give him that.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm saying. He has the
Yeah.
willingness. He's not. I don't believe he's a soft player personally. I think
No.
he's actually pretty tough.
Yeah, I think he's much tougher than CJ.
Absolutely.
He has the willingness to run, so I appreciate that. You know, you
Mhm.
never know, maybe it'll pay off for him in a big moment. But yeah, not overly nimble back there. So wrapping it up, what are your final thoughts
My
moving
final
in?
thoughts are props to Youngstown State for playing hard, man. Again, that's both of
Mhm.
our alma maters there. They
Yeah.
are better than I thought. They are a much better team than I thought. They're definitely longer at linebacker and maybe even a little faster in the secondary when I played there. Um, yeah, so they're
Surely they'll
they're
go to
they're a
the
good team.
playoffs this year.
Oh yeah, they'll make the playoffs.
Yeah.
I don't know how good the Missouri Valley is, though. I have no idea.
Mm.
But props to them. They played really, really hard. That quarterback's got a gun. I was not
Yeah.
impressed with their receivers, but they do have that Tyshawn King at running back who looks like he's a damn near stud. Marcus Hooker is playing safety for them, by the way. I didn't know if you realized that.
I did. It was pointed out during the game. I didn't know it
Oh,
until
okay,
then.
okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I missed that. I kind of watched the
Mhm.
football in 60 on Big Ten Network to get
Yep.
a feel for that, so I wasn't watching in as in depth. But yeah, so props to them. They played really hard. I didn't want to like get off this without giving them a shout out because um, I still have a lot of respect for that program. I still watch them. I still cheer for them. Everything like that. But yeah, Ohio State. A lot of questions on their defense are going to be answered this week against Western Kentucky. That's really all I can really say there. A lot of questions we have on defense with the pass coverage and all of that are going to be answered against Western Kentucky.
Yeah. All right. And I'm still looking for an offensive line that can get a running back 100 yards. I mean, we haven't had it against Indiana. We haven't had it against Youngstown State. Can we
Mhm.
do it against Western Kentucky?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
if we can, I think that'd be a good sign.
Mhm. All right.
So,
Well, thanks, Michael. It's been fun, everybody.
yep, absolutely. And we'll be back next week.
Yep. Also, by the
Oh,
way, if people didn't know, I noticed there was some. I had a discussion with somebody before, but if you haven't subscribed to our podcast and you want to, you don't need to have a YouTube account. Just log into your Gmail or log into like the little icon in the top right hand corner of YouTube. You can sign into your Gmail account. That becomes your YouTube account, and you can subscribe. So subscribe, people.
there we go. All right.
There you go.
See you next week.
All right. See ya,
All
Michael.
right. Bye.